Welcome to the Equilibrium Report. Today is October 28th, 2025. Today we're going to discuss the government shutdown, why it's occurring, who's at fault, and why. What got us here? Now both sides seem to be dangling the people, doing a tug of war, but the people are in the middle. And both sides are blaming each other for this and that. So we have to break it down and see what's what, why it is we're in this position. And personally, my personal opinion is that it is the Democrats' fault. Now I know that it's both sides' fault, but if we're going to break it down, the healthcare stuff versus the food stamp stuff, and being withheld because of it, like which one? I feel like food is more absolute than subsidizing health insurance companies further. These subsidies were put in place post-COVID as a temporary relief, but all these reliefs that they do really just fueled the inflation and greedflation that we experienced there and to now. Because obviously the companies and corporations lobby and see this stuff and lobby for it because they're going to take advantage of it. Because if people are given this money for this, they're going to take it. And if they're getting subsidies for these services, they're going to raise their prices on it. And insurance of all kinds or scams has always been a scam, and we can go into that some other time, but that's how I'm seeing it on a brief note. So I mean, really, like, what was going on before they were put in place? Why wasn't it such a big deal before they were put in place? There's never, like, they always play this emotional tagline or keyword or headline and expect people to not look any further into the story or the topic or the substance. They just want to see the frosting on the cake, but not want to see or taste what's inside, under the frosting, inside the cake. You know what I mean? So we're going to go over this. We'll break it down and talk a little bit about it. So obviously the shutdown's been going on for about a month now, and people are starting to not get paid. People are going to food banks, and now it is said that the SNAP food stamps, all of them are being withheld. Now I keep hearing that all of them are being withheld, but I also see stuff where it's like some of them are and some of them aren't. So I don't know if it's all of them or just some of them for sure. These things always kind of like the details always get lost in the headlines, you know what I mean? So, the dispute is basically over. They can't agree on a bill, right? Notice how this has been going on for at least a decade or more, where they do this, oh, we're at this deadline if we don't come up with it, but they've always done it to where they just magically came up with it last minute. And they've always rushed all these extra bull crap things in when they do these types of things, bills. And it's, they can't ever just honestly do something. Like, just do it for one thing. They always try to sneak in all this other stuff, alternative agendas and whatnot, and try to get it to where the people don't pay attention or can't notice it. And it's just, honestly, this time around, I can't back what's happening. I can't back the Democrats on this. I just can't. But here's why. They want a clean bill without the extra stuff added to it, which means it will expire and then have to be reapplied for or re-voted for or whatever, right? Now keep in mind, these are things that were temporary things, temporary bills put in, or temporary reliefs. So I mean, technically they should be removed. Like everything from COVID should be removed. Like I didn't like anything to do with COVID. All that stimulus money was a waste of money and just basically a distraction for all the other handouts they were giving the rich people and all the money laundering going on and fraud with all of that crap, all the loans and shit. Everything that happened from that was everything they do is money laundering. Everything they do is money laundering. They're just stealing the American people's money. And it goes off in God knows who knows what in someone's pockets. And both sides have been doing this for decades. If you go back and really look at it, it's the same stuff every time, and that's what's going on now. Like, look at it now. Oh, they can't decide on a bill over a few $1 billion. It's always over a small amount. But then they turn around and are throwing away huge amounts. Which doesn't even make sense because they could have easily dealt with the small amount that they're crying about and fighting about and stalling about. And that happens every single time. And this time, $40 billion to Argentina. You know, all these all these stupid extra things, right? It just none of it ever seems to make sense. They say the Democrats are insisting on adding off-budget policy demands such as extending the ACA health insurance subsidies into what should be straightforward funding legislation, thereby complicating and delaying the process. Which that I agree with. They are complicating it and making this. They could have just voted on funding this on the stuff and dealt with this later. They're trying to basically hold people hostage over it. And these, like I said, these insurance subsidies are not helping. It's helping the insurance companies, which we're never going to get out of this problem if we're always relying on private insurance, right? Like if we're going to stick with this insurance system, then all forms of insurance need to be government mandated or government regulated. Plain and simple. It shouldn't be. Sorry, my allergies are tripping. So yeah, all these subsidies, all they do is help the corporations and companies providing whatever the subsidies are covering. So insurance or food, right? So the insurance companies are screwing everybody because they're getting subsidized by the government, so like, fuck it, right? And then the grocery stores are doing the same thing because everyone got all these extra food benefits and stuff, so like, oh, let's raise the prices. And people knew this was going to happen before it all started. Everyone was saying it online, but then everyone got the benefits and didn't care anymore. But now they're complaining that, oh, everything's so expensive. And now I'm going to lose my benefits and I won't be able to afford it. It's like, no shit. I can't afford to eat because of the inflation. And I called this before it even started. The moment they even thought about giving stimulus or doing inflation packages for COVID, I called it right from the start that they were going to induce inflation and greed. They were just going to, it's greed. And that's where we're at. That's what happened. That's why everything's overpriced and expensive. And the worst part is, it doesn't come back down. So now once these things get removed, it's not going to come back down. We're just going to be screwed. So we always screw ourselves. We keep letting these people screw us and steal our money, basically. They're stealing everything the government does on both sides is a form of stealing the American people's money, either for themselves or for another country or forever, whatever mystery pool all this money has been going to over the decades. Nah. I'm not having it. I'm not buying it. The Republicans also argue that the party's struggle is less about program specifics this time and more about who controls the levers of government. So yeah, it's like just a political battle, just to have a political battle. Meanwhile, the people are in the middle suffering. Democrats contend that Republicans want to fund the government without addressing key priorities such as the extension of the ACA insurance tax credits, which are set to expire, protections for vulnerable programs, and avoiding certain recessions or rescissions of social programs. They also argue that without those protections, millions of Americans will see health insurance costs go up, vital social programs will be weakened, and that simply passing a clean fund the government bill is insufficient because it kicks the can down the road and leaves major policy issues unresolved. Now, again, these are things that were added in temporarily. So things are just going to go back to how they were before COVID, basically, right? Like, what were people doing then? You know, obviously, there was always a complaint. And I'll get to this later. But as of now, things are just going to go back to how they were. Plain and simple, you know. They also argue that the GOP's revived use of rescissions undermines the normal budget process and gives the executive branch too much control over what programs get cut. And I can agree with that too. You know, they obviously have too much control and power over stuff. But every time I hear about these things and these arguments, when I really start looking into the details and facts, it always seems like the left is always trying to skew the truth and trick people. Like they're no better. You know, they just go about it differently and with a different mask. So it's good that both sides still need some of each side to get stuff done, but the problem is all of our politicians are useless, opportunist, elitist bastards anyway. They're all just in it for the bucks, the money, and the benefits, you know. They're too comfy, you know. They get paid too much, they get too many benefits. No. They should have to live more like the average person, and then they'd act like it and vote accordingly. So the Democrats are holding out all because of that, which I don't agree with. I mean, people will just go back to how it was, yeah, which wasn't great, but it's like, I mean, a lot of people don't have health care still. I mean, it's a problem that this still doesn't solve. Like, if you really want to solve it, then solve it. Not has any blue state came up with their own state-funded healthcare, universal healthcare program? Because they're allowed to. They do it. They do state things when it comes to everything else, like the weed and everything else. So why aren't these blue states creating their own statewide healthcare systems, using the weed money and such, or whatever money they think is so readily available to do it on a national level, right? Why don't they go ahead and do it? They haven't. They haven't. So this is all just kickback. This is all just benefit, again, for the corporations, the insurance companies, and the middlemen. You know what I mean? Once again, the people get screwed for it. I mean, that's really what it seems to be about. I just pulled up what the internet brought up about this topic and what I've seen from it, from different podcasts and videos and social media posts and whatnot. And I felt like I had to look into it because the left always skews stuff. So you always have to look at what's actually happening, because they say one thing when it's another, very often. So we're getting services messed up, federal workers messed up, economy messed up, people's food security getting messed up. And really, this is going to come back and hurt the Democrats again, even further. It's almost like they're deliberately shooting themselves in their own feet. Like they did it last election multiple times. And they've been doing it. Like I've been saying it from the start, that they are enabling what's happening deliberately behind the scenes. Like it's all an act. It's putting on a show and a play for everyone. that they think they're they think they're a part of. It's like that. What the Affordable Care Act extensions actually refer to. By extensions, we mean the temporary upgrades to the Affordable Care Act's premium tax credits, PTCs, made over recent years. In particular, increased subsidy amounts, so eligible enrollees pay less for the insurance premiums, subsidizing insurance companies. Expanded eligibility, so more households qualify for subsidies, including those earning more than 400% of the federal poverty line, FPL. These upgrades were always temporary. They were sunset provisions unless further action is taken, which obviously was not. Specifically, under the original Affordable Care Act rules, eligibility was incomes from 100% up to 400% of the federal poverty line. And subsidy amounts followed formulas. The upgrades removed the 400% FPL cap temporarily and reduced the percentage of income required for premiums, thus making marketplace plans far more affordable for many. Which is great, but at the same time causing a problem at the same time. So, you know what I mean? Like, these things that help and cause relief also cause problems, because it's not a controlled environment. These companies and corporations have to be reined in by the government, unfortunately, because otherwise the greed gets out of control. And no matter how much relief you throw at it, people still can't afford it. It's still too expensive, and there's still a lot of people left without health care, plain and simple. So it's not solving the ultimate problem. However, it is keeping people from being able to get food. Does it not? For a lot of people. Now, I know that, there's arguments about the food stamps, but, which one? I mean, you can't just get rid of all the assistance. I mean, people do need assistance, and actually, all the assistance that is given out is honestly probably what floats the economy. It probably makes up half or a third of the economy. Maybe even, it probably makes up a good chunk of it. So if you were to wipe out all the assistance in the U.S., there would be nothing. There'd be half as many people buying half as much stuff, which would cripple half the industries and businesses, and half the jobs, and half the money flowing. So it's all a balancing act. Why these extensions were put in place to begin with. There are several interlocking reasons. The COVID-19 pandemic and its economic aftermath prompted policymakers to shore up coverage. Many people lost employer coverage, incomes were unstable, and access to affordable insurance was under strain. Now, mind you, this is because of the policies that they enacted. They forced people out of jobs. And, we can debate the whole reasoning as to how COVID came about, but, yeah. In response, Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA, which temporarily enhanced the PTCs, larger amounts, and wider eligibility. PTCs are the premium tax credits. Later, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, IRA, extended those enhancements for a few additional years through tax year 2025, rather than letting them expire at the original planned date. So, we've just been kicking it down anyway. We've known this is going to happen. They always wait like last second to try to throw all these things under the bus so you don't notice it when you run them over. You know what I mean? It's like a stupid animal or a kid running out in front of your car last second, The goal: increase affordability of marketplace coverage, expand eligibility, especially for middle income households, and avoid a dramatic jump in premiums and drop in enrollment. For example, studies show that without those enhanced credits, many would face large premium hikes or drop coverage. So basically, the insurance companies didn't want to lose out. And their buddy politicians didn't want them either. I'm sure they all got kickbacks in stocks. When these changes took effect, here's the timeline. 2010, the Affordable Care Act enacted, original premium tax credit structure established. And I remember back then a lot of people seemed opposed to it, and it wasn't really solving the problem. And here we are again, like 15 years later, dang, we haven't got any progress. You notice that? How all the problems that the left or the right cry about and fight for conveniently never get addressed because we're always just doing this every election cycle. It's going nowhere. Woo! Key implications if the enhancements are not extended. Premium for many marketplace enrollees would rise sharply. For example, one analysis projects average premium increases of over 75% for enrollees if the enhanced credits expired. So what were these people doing prior to these credits? That's what I want to know. Or did the price just seem to get that expensive after the credits were given out? Do you know what I mean? Eligibility would shrink. Incomes above the 400% federal poverty line would again be excluded from subsidies under original rules. Enrollment in marketplace plans could drop as higher premiums push some out. That could worsen risk pools, which in turn could push up premiums further. So yeah. If Congress doesn't renew the ACA subsidy extensions, things are basically just going to revert to how they were before COVID under the original Affordable Care Act rules, which was Obama's thing that everyone applauded. It was so great, right? It was great, wasn't it? Like, so let's go back to that. You know, before COVID, subsidies were available only for people making 100 to 400% of the federal poverty line. Anyone earning above that, $58,000 for a single person, or $120,000 for a family of four, got no help, even if their insurance cost a big chunk of their income. Once again, it's really the insurance and the service providers causing the cost crisis. This has nothing to do with the government. Because the government doesn't control it. They should, but they don't. That's the problem with letting private equity control everything and all your essential services and needs. Premiums for middle-class families were often high because they got no subsidy safety net. I mean, you can just not have health insurance, you know, live a healthy life. Like, I haven't gone to the doctor in like 20 years. And the few times I have gone, they didn't help me and couldn't solve the problem. Not to say I'm like a clean bill of health, I could be dying, but I'm just saying, people go to the freaking doctor too much and for every freaking thing. Like, especially the people that don't have to pay for it. They go for every fucking thing, bro. And you're wasting money. Like, and these are people that often don't live healthy lifestyles. Like, don't even try at all to have any kind of health habits. So, I mean, I hate when people just cherry pick topics and issues instead of looking at the whole picture and the whole problem rather than a piece of the problem. You know, they're just trying to digest a piece of the problem, you know, because it's comforting. If they had to digest the whole thing, it'd be uncomfortable. And they'd probably shit their pants. During COVID, temporary enhancements. The American Rescue Plan and Inflation Reduction Act made two key changes. They removed the 400% FPL cap, so even higher income households could get help, subsidies, if their premiums exceeded 8.5% of their income. Which, damn, that is a lot. But again, that's the problem with the insurance and the services billing things at unreasonable rates. Like, everyone's done this research on the hospitals charging you $50 for a damn fucking aspirin, bro. You know what I mean? But again, like, none of this stuff ever, like, manifests into actual savings to the people. Because every time they see a person or the people get an extra dollar, they just figure out a way to take $3 from them. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, they got $1? Well, we need to take 3 of them from them. You know, that's basically their mentality. So the result of that is record ACA marketplace enrollment. Over 21 million people in 2025. If it expires, if the extensions are allowed to lapse at the end of 2025, the 400% income cap returns, meaning middle-income households lose eligibility entirely. Subsidy amounts shrink back to pre-2021 formulas, so lower-income enrollees will pay more. The average premium increase is projected at roughly 60 to 80% for people who lose those extra credits. Analysts expect millions to drop coverage or switch to cheaper, less comprehensive plans, and that's kind of the point, right? Competition for cheaper alternatives, or maybe do what everyone else has to do. Like, I have to go without certain things to meet my budget that I would need or want, you know what I mean? I'm not going to the doctor every month or every day or every year. Shit, like, I just now went to the dentist this summer for the first time in 20 years. Like, so bottom line, and that's the bottom line. Basically, if it expires, we just go back to how it was before 2021, or before COVID. So basically, the whole shutdown is over that. And the Democrats want to make all those subsidies and stuff permanent, and Republicans want to fund a bill without that stuff. What do you guys think about it? I mean, I don't know. I feel like screw the healthcare, because it still doesn't solve the whole healthcare crisis as a whole. I'd rather people and their kids be able to just eat. Even if the food stamps has contributed to the grocery inflation, there's still stuff that could be done to, probably knock that down a little bit, but they just don't do it. And grocery stores need to be held accountable, or maybe people just need to start community organizing their own community grocery stores. It's not easy, but you can at least do it with some kind of produce in some areas, and maybe some eggs and stuff like that. Meat and stuff's a whole different story, and dairy, but some places can do it. But it'll save a little bit, because man, going to the store and it's like one vegetable will be like a few dollars, and it's like, what? Like, you add up all the cost to a meal, and just a basic meal's $10 to $20 for 1 or 2 people. Like, to have to cook yourself at home and clean and do all the prep and whatnot. So I don't know. So the main arguments are those extensions were meant to be temporary from the start. People should have got lapsed the first time. Honestly, they should have stopped. I didn't agree with Biden extending everything from COVID. He should have just knocked all that shit out, because it only fueled the greedflation. You can't deny that. You can't deny that. Arguments for removing the extensions. 1, they were meant to be temporary in the first place. They should have been removed the first time around when they were set to expire. But Biden extended them along with a bunch of other things that should have been expired. That ultimately just led to the inflation and greedflation that we're all experiencing and suffering from. They kept giving stuff out way past giving stuff out was needed. All the extra food stamps raised food prices. All these subsidies raised those prices. You're lying to yourself if you don't believe that. They're expensive to maintain. $250 billion over 10 years. $250 billion over 10 years. They distort the insurance market. I talked about that the whole time. They expand middle class dependency. So, I mean, under the extensions, people making over 100K a year get the aid. Which isn't bad or anything. It's just, if we're going to do this, then we need to do it for everybody to benefit, not just select people all the time. You know, let's either just have health care for everybody or paid to play. And you just better take care of yourself and hope that you're healthy. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, the things have to meet in the middle to work. You know what I mean? They avoid real reform, like I was just saying. Instead of pouring more money into the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, some economists and several Republicans argue that U.S. should focus on cost-side reforms, reducing hospital monopolies, prescription prices, administrative waste, not just boosting federal aid that gets wasted. But I take it further, like I said. Just do it. Just do it all. You know what I mean? Do it all, or let's go back to how it was, you know? And so people will continue to actually, maybe eventually learn to vote for people that actually will get this stuff done that they want to get done. Because this stuff, like I said, people have been fighting and arguing over the same problems and same three issues for decades now. And none of it's ever getting done, you know? We've wasted so much money on all these other things going in and out, in and out. We could have addressed all this. We could have provided health care for everybody. We could have done all these things, but we're not, you know. Counter arguments for keeping the extensions. The original Affordable Care Act formula left a coverage gap. Even before COVID, many middle-income families couldn't afford ACA plans because premiums could easily reach 15 to 20% of their income. The extensions fix that gap, which is good, but again, that goes to a problem with the insurance companies and the cost of services to begin with, and there not being an actual healthcare system in place, and all these other countries have one. And we're giving them money, probably, to have it. 2, the policy worked. Marketplace enrollment hit all-time highs, and the uninsured rate dropped to the lowest in history, around 7%. Gains for who? Gains for the insurance industry? I mean, yeah, it helps out people, but again, it's like these things, you know, if you can't really afford to take care of everything, maybe you shouldn't be doing all that. Like me personally, I'm barely just managing myself, right? And I have had an okay amount of money for one person, enough to live okay. As long as you're not getting screwed externally, that's the hardest part in life, is external things screwing your life. You know, that's what you got to avoid. Nothing else really matters or fucks your life up more than that, and nothing protects you from that. So again, like whatever. But anyway. Healthcare costs haven't normalized. Even though COVID has faded, medical inflation, hospital mergers, and higher drug prices mean premiums remain high. Again, greedflation. So many argue the financial strain is still real. That's not really an argument for me to keep them. It's just like, well, it seems screwed either way, so let's just fucking get rid of it and come up with something different, right? Like, repeal would raise taxes indirectly. People losing subsidies would pay thousands more out of pocket, which for them functions like a hidden tax hike. Well, I mean, we're dealing with that anyway with the tariffs. You know what I mean? Aren't we? We're paying all that. We pay all this stuff anyway. They always come up with an excuse for raising the prices, but they're always raising the prices on us. They're always going to try and take every extra dollar they see you get. Both sides have points. The extensions cost money, and without a plan to offset them, they add to long-term deficits. Reverting to pre-2021 rules would sharply raise health costs for millions and likely increase the uninsured rate. But still, that's a propped up stat. because it was put there to begin with as a temporary measure. So that without COVID, that never would have existed anyway, without the COVID crap, right? So that's not a real point or counterpoint or reality check, in my opinion. It's a null fact. Like it's like a problem you create and then complain about. So we go back. The government's paying more, so the companies raise their prices. You go from point A to point B with that. When a government expands their subsidies, insurers know customers are buffered by those credits. So instead of competing to lower prices, they quietly raise the premiums. It's kind of like the same thing at the stores when there's a big sale about to happen, so they just raise the prices before the sale type crap. Once again, it's helping, it's always propping up and bailing out the industries. You know what I mean? There's a lack of real competition already with that, so there's a problem. Hospitals and pharma exploit the same dynamics. Insurance companies pass those higher costs downstream to hospitals and drug companies, who in turn inflate their price and drug price for their services and drug prices. Most patients never see the full price. It's buried in the insurance billing. There's little consumer accountability. It's all hidden under layers of coverage. Results: inflated costs, not better care. The average ACA benchmark premium has increased by over 60% since 2015, while corporate profits for major insurers like United Health and Cigna have quadrupled in the same period. Yet, care access hasn't improved proportionally. I still know people that can't get health care. So while the intent is to help individuals afford health care, the effect often becomes a public-to-private transfer of wealth, federal dollars propping up a profit-heavy system instead of fixing its insufficiencies. Kind of like 2008. As one Brookings analyst put it, we're subsidizing prices, not solving them. That's what I've been saying. Real reform would focus on price transparency and competition, breaking up regional insurance monopolies, reining in hospital consolidation, and tying subsidies to price controls, not just coverage levels. Or we could just give universal health care and stop subsidizing other countries. So yeah, what could be done about it then, like I was saying at the start? Blue states, since they're so about universal health care, could come up with their own universal health care systems, right? Under federal law, states can actually create their own universal or single-payer systems through a special process. That is called Section 1332 waiver from the Affordable Care Act. This waiver lets a state take over federal health care funds, like ACA subsidies and Medicaid money, and use them differently, as long as the new system covers as many people with as good coverage without raising the federal deficit. Now, these states also often have, additional sources of income, such as medical and recreational marijuana and gambling, casinos. Like, there's casinos and drugs and alcohol. They could get the rest of the money from that. More than likely, I would imagine, if you honestly removed waste from everything and not just pretend, actually took corruption out of everything, we would have enough money for everything. The problem is everything's corrupted. Everyone's stealing. So yeah, California could do it. They could combine existing health funds. They could pool all state and federal health spending, Medi-Cal, ACA subsidies, state employee insurance, etc., into a single trust fund. That alone is hundreds of billions of dollars. California spends over $400 billion per year on healthcare through various channels. Excuse me. Add new state funding sources. Use the sin taxes, like I said, cannabis excise tax, alcohol, and tobacco. California brought in about $1 billion a year in cannabis tax revenue. Small compared to healthcare costs, but a symbolic and supplementary source.
So yeah, you can get some money from that. That's just from the weed. You can get it from other stuff, like was said. Add a progressive payroll tax or wealth surtax dedicated to healthcare. For example, a 2% employer-side payroll tax and a 1% individual income surcharge could raise $40 to $50 billion per year. You know, you could also just tax the rich people properly as well, and the corporations. They always want to argue, oh, if you do that, they'll leave or cut jobs. They do that anyway. They're doing that anyway right now. Amazon's about to cut a crap ton of jobs. They can also negotiate with the providers. The state becomes the sole buyer of healthcare services. That gives them the leverage to negotiate hospital rates and drug prices, like Canada does, reducing waste and inflated costs by 10 to 15%. They could also apply for a federal waiver, the 1332 waiver, to redirect all ACA subsidies and Medicaid funds. They can use the 1332 waiver to redirect all Affordable Care Act subsidies and Medicaid funds, tens of billions annually, into the new system. The feds still pay, but the state runs the show. They can roll it out gradually, start with universal coverage for kids, seniors, and low-income adults, and expand it year by year until everyone's covered. Colorado could do a smaller scale public option plus model, keep private insurance available, but offer a state-run public plan people can buy into. Use weed revenue to subsidize the public plan for low-income residents. Gradually expand eligibility until it's open to everyone. If successful, fold in federal funds later under the 1332 waiver. And I guess they've kind of started something like this already. I'll have to look into it, but this is the route they need to be going. They got to start. It's just like with the weed legalization. You got to start with one state at a time, and eventually, others follow, right? So resistance comes from insurance and hospital lobbies, obviously. They pour millions of dollars into opposing single-payer systems. Fear of federal backlash. States rely on billions in federal healthcare funds that could be jeopardized by political fights. Obviously, in this political arena, that is valid. Sticker shock. The gross cost of a universal system looks massive on paper, even though total systems costs would drop in the long run. Internal division. Democrats in states like California couldn't even unite their own party around AB 1400 due to funding disagreements. So a state could build its own universal healthcare system. The tools exist, legally, financially, and administratively. But people just can't get it to get along, Alright, so we've gone over all that, okay? Ultimately, it sounds like we just need a government-run system and an honest government to run it, right? Or the corporations need to start getting a little less greedy, if they want to exist. Why a government-run system makes sense. Healthcare isn't a normal market. When you're sick, you're not price shopping or choosing based on competition. That makes profit-driven models inherently inefficient. People don't behave like normal consumers when the alternative is dying or going bankrupt. Middlemen add cost, not value. Private insurers don't deliver care, they just manage billing and risk. In the U.S., roughly 15 to 20 cents of every health dollar goes to admin, marketing, and profit. In systems like Canada's or the UK's, it's 2 to 3 cents. The incentives are backwards. A for-profit insurer makes money by not paying for care. A public insurer makes money when people stay healthy. It simplifies everything. One network, one card, one billing system. You could cut the paperwork burden that currently eats hundreds of billions each year money that could literally fund universal coverage. So, why the resistance? Massive industry profits and lobbying. Health insurance is a $1 trillion sector. In 2023, United Health alone made over $22 billion in profit. Those profits fund political campaigns, ads, and lobbying that scare voters with government takeover rhetoric. Political branding. Socialized medicine became a dirty phrase during the Cold War, even though every other rich democracy runs some form of nonprofit or state insurance. The fragmented system equals entrenched interests. Hospitals, pharma, insurers, and employers all benefit from the current patchwork. Each group would lose leverage under a unified public system. Transition shock. Switching millions of people, jobs, and contracts into a new structure overnight would be a chaotic mess without a carefully staged rollout. What it could look like in practice. A U.S. public insurer could operate like Medicare for All, one federal plan for everyone funded through taxes. Medicare Choice, everyone keeps their private coverage or buys into the government plan. State-run models like CalCare or Colorado Care, where the state becomes the insurer and negotiates directly with hospitals and drug makers. All versions share one goal: eliminate profit incentives from the core of health coverage, while keeping providers private if desired. So yeah, at the end of the day, what's really the problem? What's really the solution? You tell me. If your goal is efficiency, universality, and fairness, then yes, a government-run nonprofit insurance system is the rational structure. If your goal is competition, choice, and innovation, then private plans can play a role, but only with strong regulation and price caps. Right now, the United States has the worst of both worlds. Corporate socialism for insurers, free market chaos for everyone else. Now a word from our sponsors. We all have to do something every day that we don't want to do. Some days it's easier than others. Most of the time it's not pleasant, but we have to do it. Sometimes it can bring peace and clarity. The government shutdown. The Affordable Care Act subsidies might expire. Congress is yelling. Your social media is on fire with left and right, this and that, them and those. And honestly, some days it just feels like you need a lot of relief. Introducing PolitiWipe. The only toilet paper engineered to handle all the political crap you're dealing with daily. Soft enough for sensitive feelings, strong enough for absurd policy debates, and scented like freedom. Oh yeah. Use it at work, use it at home, use it when reading the news and realizing your tax dollars are funding a fight over ACA subsidies while someone's yacht just got a government bailout again. PolitiWipe. Because sometimes the real thing that needs cleaning isn't your butthole. Alright, that's it for the Equilibrium Report. I hope you learned some facts today. Make of it what you will, I guess. It can still be debated, but personally, I feel like the left is messing this up. They caused the problem in the first place, and they're kind of causing it now. Yes, the right is holding them by the balls because they can. And I don't like them at all, mind you. I don't like pretty much either side. I actually dislike the right a little bit more. But it's hard to argue with a lot of the things they say about the left. Like when you really dive into the issues, man, the left's always shooting themselves in the foot and being hypocritical. And they have this elitist mindset and talk about themselves. Like, oh, we're just trying to help everyone out and give everyone health care and food and education. It's like, well, then, then do it. Do it in all your blue states. Do it then. If you say it can be done, then do it. You're able to do it. And they say all this stuff, they conveniently create situations to where it doesn't occur. Or they just blatantly go and vote against it. It's always some kind of deal. And they don't, the arguments they make are just without any basis. Like, they're just taking it like, oh, I said it, so it's true, face value. Not looking into any facts, like blue states pollute and contaminate, shuffle shit under the rug just like red states do. They enable the same exact elites and pedos. Bing! Like, tell me where they're different exactly. Tell me where they're different exactly. Not just where they pretend and put on the show that they're different. Show me where they're actually different. Where they actually vote and perform and do the things, rather than make excuses as to why they're not doing them. This is the Equilibrium Report. Till next time.
You are watching the Equilibrium Report. Stay free, stay true, stay defiant.